So in this video, I will show you how to use the client application SSMS to create databases and tables to manage and host the data in SQL Server. So when you start SSMS, this is the first screen that you will see, which allows you to connect to a database. So if you start it within your Amazon EC2, the server name should be pre-filled for you, and Windows authentication should be the default method for your connection. So if this is the case, simply hitting the connect button will allow you to connect to your existing empty database server that you have installed in the EC2. So as you can see, this empty database only has system databases without any custom databases that you use. Alternatively, you can also connect to your database using SQL Server authentication, where you fill in the login name and password. Okay, so if this is the first time you're using SSMS, your default login name should be SA, which stands for System Administrator. And the password is the system admin password that you created during the installation process of SQL Server. So regarding the server name, you can use the server name in Amazon that is pre-filled. But just in case you lose it somehow, you can always connect to your local database server using a dot. Because a dot represents local connection or local host. So after you fill in these fields, you can hit the connect button to connect to the same database. So as you can see, now I have established two connections to the same database, which is not necessary. So let me just disconnect the first connection. So now, in this database server, let's create our first database container. So you can do so by right-clicking on the database folder here and select New Database. And in the window showing up next, you can type in the name for your first database. So in this example, I'm gonna using student as the name for my new database. After you type in the database name, you can hit OK button to create the student database container. So in this student database container, we can next create one or more tables that hosts actual data in it. So in order to do so, you need to expand the database container that you just created, locate a folder named tables, expand it. So right now there are no tables created yet. So to create a table called student, we can right click on the tables folder here, select new, select table, which will open up a list of columns where you can fill in the names of these columns, their corresponding data types, and other configuration options. Right, so let's assume that we want to create a table looking like this. A student table with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, which are student ID, first name, last name, age, and GPA. So the 6 student records here are the actual data that we'll be inserting into the table later on. But for now, let's create an empty table called student that enables the column student ID, first name, last name, age, and GPA. Okay, so to do so, we just need to enter the names of this table, starting with student ID. And the data type for student ID is mvarchar50. Okay, so I will explain how to choose data types in a later video in another session. But for now, you can just follow what I'm doing here. The student ID and varchar 50, and we don't allow nulls. Then we can move on to the first name, which is also in varchar 50, which allow nulls. Next, last name and varchar 50 that allow nulls. So basically the varchar 50 means it's text or string data type, because ID, first name, and the last names are all text-based attributes for students. The next one is the age that looks like integer numbers, and then GPA that are non-integers, which we call floats in database terminology. Okay. So we move on to age, which is supposed to be integers. So you can find int integer, or sometimes you can just type int directly here to denote the data type for the corresponding column. Okay, we allow nulls for these two. And the last one is the GPA. GPA cannot be integer. It should be either real or float. Okay, float. So the difference between float, real, or the difference between integer and long, they are similar, but they are slightly different technically. So which will also be explained in a later video. Okay, so after you are done with filling the column names, their corresponding data types, and whether you allow nulls or not, you are ready to close this window and save changes to the table. And then you can give a name for this table. So I'm going to give it student, the student as the name for this entire table. So after saving the table, you should be able to find the table inside this table folder. But sometimes you need to refresh this Object Explorer to see it. So after I click this button, refresh, or press F5, I was able to see the dbo.student table created under the student database container. So if you right click on dbo student table and press select top 1000 rows, so you will see that an empty table has been created, which has 5 columns, which are exactly the same 5 columns that we entered manually a few minutes ago. Okay, so in this way, you can also create a second table, third table, and so on and so forth by right-clicking on the tables folder, select New Table. Okay, and all you have to do is to just fill in the column names and determine their data types and determine whether they allow nulls or not. Okay, so I'm going to skip here. And similarly, you can also create another database container by right-clicking on the databases folder here, and new database, and come up with the name for your second or third database. Okay, so the next topic in this video is to show you how to insert data, update data, and delete data in your database or database tables that we just created manually. So although writing SQL queries to do these things could be more efficient, but I will cover the SQL queries in another video. This video will only cover the manual approach. Okay, so suppose we want to insert 6 student records, or say 6 rows into the student table, whose values are shown in this table, starting with Michael Green, age 19, GPA 3.7. Okay. So the way to manually do it is right-click on the student table here, then select Edit top 200 rows. And then you can just fill in the values for every single column designed into this table. So for example, the student ID is S0001. Michael is the first name. Green as the last name. So this guy is 19 years old with GPA 3.7. Okay, so here if you press enter, you will move on to the next row in the table. So the next row is Andrea Red, 18 years old, GPA 4.0. So S0002 as the student ID. Angela Red. So she is 18 years old and GPA 4.0. Okay, so one thing I want to remind you is if you entered some value that is not acceptable based on the column data types. So for example, GPA was set as the float data type, which only accepts numerical values. But if you enter like full spelled or English spelling, then when you try to move on to the next row, it does not allow you, okay, saying invalid value for cell. So that means you have to enter the values for each row, meeting the requirement for the data types we designed in the table. So we have to enter 4.0 here instead of the text values. Okay, so now I have done entering all the student records in this table. So when you are satisfied with the student records, or you can close this window. Okay, so after closing the window, if you select the top 1000 rows again, you will see all the 6 student records have been successfully inserted into the student table. Okay, the next topic is how to update the existing value for your table. So to do so, actually it's very easy and similar to what we have just done. We again right click on the table, choose edit top 200 rows, and change the value of any cell that you want to update. So for example, if I want to increase Gabriello's GPA to 3.2, then I can just overwrite the existing value and close the window. Okay, so if I select top 1000 rows again, you can see that his GPA has been updated to 3.2. Okay, so to remove a record from a table, we can also edit the top 200 rows and right click on the row that you want to delete. Select delete. And that's it. Okay, so basically inserting data, updating data, and deleting data all takes place by right clicking on the table and choose the edit to top 200 rows. Okay, so once again, in a later video, I will also show you how to do the same thing using the SQL queries, which is the most standard and efficient way to do the data manipulations. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.